Number 5. Life on a space station is not nice. I like a lot of sci-fi stuff, and I think it would just be the coolest thing ever to live in space. Imagine being able to look down on the Earth, seeing it as just a beautiful blue marble. A lot of astronauts describe seeing the Earth as a transcendent experience. It's a shame that just about every other aspect of living on a space station is unimaginably bad. For example, I bet you didn't know that astronauts' gloves are so tightly sealed on them that frequently astronauts peel their fingernails off and they injure their fingers while taking them off. Ha, if you need a second to like shake your willies out after that, I understand. Maybe you didn't know that most astronauts vomit soon after entering zero gravity for the first time, even if they've had plenty of simulator experience. Not made any better, of course, is the fact that, the vomit doesn't go anywhere except where you are, and then it's just floating like you're in the world's worst snow globe. Even just existing in space can be damaging to your body. Astronauts who spend extended time up in zero G report a huge loss of bone density. Obviously, there's not much in the way of plumbing aboard a space station. Astronauts shower, but not quite the way you'd expect. They use something similar to a squirt gun and a washcloth, a bit of a college dorm room throwback for you. Nothing but the finest. And of course, what do astronauts drink? Well, this one's pretty popular and common. You might know this. You have to make use of everything you have in space, so astronauts have little choice but to drink recycled urine as their drinking water. It's heavily processed and recycled into clean water, but I dare you, drink that and try not to think about how it's your coworkers' pee while you're knocking it back. And my friends, if you love what we do here and you want loads more stories of terror from beyond the stars, cryptids, ghouls, evil people, and lots more that can't be categorized, it's all here on Top 5 Scary. Subscribe and stay scared. Now let's keep going. Number 4. Getting baked by the sun. Sounds nice, actually, but not in this context. A walk in space sounds like the single coolest thing a human being could ever do in your life. Imagine walking in space! Of course, a spacewalk is no easy task, even for a veteran astronaut. Triply so if, God forbid, anything bad happens. Bob Kerbeam was an astronaut, and he held the impressive record of completing the most spacewalks in a single trip, with 4. So Kerbeam was about as good as it gets when it comes to taking a zero-G stroll. And on one of those walks, a cooling pipe burst, and Kerbeam found his suit soaked in toxic ammonia. Now, the only air inside a space station or spacecraft is really whatever the astronauts brought with them. It's a closed system. So the last thing any astronaut would ever want to do is bring something volatile and toxic, like say a spacesuit covered in ammonia that's contaminating you, inside the space station. Now, luckily, because Kerbeam was a very experienced spacewalker, he was able to react quickly and properly with a kind of scary solution. He said that part of NASA training is being able to take things slow and being able to look around yourself even during the most panic-inducing moments of your life, and this training helped him quickly come up with a clever solution. What's the best way to burn something toxic off your suit? By boiling it, of course. And where's a good source of heat out in space? Well, Kerbeam thought to do a little tanning and got himself closer to the sun and let himself bake for a full half hour to boil off the ammonia. I can't even imagine how surreal that experience must have been. Imagine sun tanning in front of the sun, just spread eagle, letting all the rays on you. The rest of the crew did their best to clean the suit and wore oxygen masks until they could be absolutely certain that nothing had made its way into the craft. It's a stark reminder of just how serious you have to take every single thing aboard a space station. There is no room for error. I'm sure there's some little laughs in between it all. Something as small as a little spill can be disastrous. Number 3, space garbage. Obviously, whatever we toss into the atmosphere isn't coming back down anytime soon. Objects really close to Earth's orbits will fall down, a few years, but anything 1,000 miles away or so, that's going to be orbiting for the next couple centuries. So make sure not to drop anything too important. If you lose your wallet in space, you're not getting that back anytime soon. This is becoming one of the most concerning and pressing problems for NASA, as the debris up in space keeps growing and we're not really doing much to get rid of it. As you can imagine, a collision with anything would be disastrous. In fact, recently the ESA tweeted out a photo of a cracked space station window on the ISS. Kinda terrifying. Luckily, there was no breach or any structural damage, just a massive crack in a window. What's scary is that the debris that cracked the window was a fleck of paint. A fleck of paint. Something as small as that in space can cause massive ruptures. And with how much junk and garbage there is floating around space, it's like you're playing asteroids, except the asteroids are discarded fuselages and broken pipes. Now this next point is equal parts scary and sad, so just so you're aware. So everyone knows Yuri Gagarin was the first man in space, and Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first men on the moon. But before them, the brave cosmonauts were of a less human variety, namely Laika the Russian Cosmodog or Albert the Space Monkey, among others. Before we were feeling quite confident enough to send any of our best and brightest up into space, we decided we should try with our furry friends up there first. The trouble is, very few of our test animals ever made it back in one piece. Some burnt up on re-entry, some died in orbit, like poor Laika, who died of stress-induced panic upon being shot into space, which is pretty understandable. Most dogs I've ever met lose their entire mind getting in the backseat of a car, let alone being strapped into a rocket and fired out of the Earth's atmosphere at a breakneck pace. Now tragically, since not all of these animals ever made it to re-entry, some of them are still up there floating as a horrifying monument to the sacrifices we made to get to where we are. Rest in peace, Laika. You were taken too soon, you're gone, but you are never forgotten. Number 2, on-the-fly repair. Now oftentimes astronauts will have to do on-the-fly repairs while out in space, which can be both incredibly stressful and highly dangerous. I mean, if anything goes wrong, it could spell critical consequences for you, obviously, but it also affects your crew, and in the case of the ISS, you're talking about something that would affect the entire planet. Scott Parazynski is a famous American astronaut. He's notable because he completed 7 spacewalks in his career, including one miraculous, terrifying impromptu EVA trip to repair a solar panel. EVA is extravehicular activity, if you didn't know that. I learned that from Halo 3. Parazynski did an interview with BuzzFeed Science, where he spoke of this nail-chewing experience. Initially, the main objective while they went up there was to install a new module on the ISS that would serve as a building point for additional future research laboratories. Very cool. And part of this process involved changing the location of an array of solar panels because they were in the way. Things were going along really well, and the crew inside commanded these large solar panels to extend. They then got jammed up and the panels began to tear. Parazynski told the BuzzFeed Science staff it was unsafe to continue to extend this panel any further, and you couldn't retract it either. There was concern that if we even tried to undock the space shuttle, it might rip apart and hit the shuttle and we would have another Columbia disaster on our hands. Or we would damage the ISS and we would have to have everyone evacuate. On the ground, Houston was rushing to try and come to a solution because obviously no one wants either of those things. And their solution was to have Parazynski take a spacewalk further from the safety of an airlock that anyone had ever done before. Parazynski explained though, that wasn't even what was stressing him out. Listen to this. There was a real danger that we could do even worse damage to the space station. And there was the potential of risk to myself, because if there was any metal-to-metal connection with the solar panel or arcing, it could actually electrocute me, or it could ignite the oxygen in my spacesuit. All of the tools I had to be specially insulated. The metal in my spacesuit had to be wrapped in tape. Thankfully, everything worked, and I still think it's one of NASA's greatest accomplishments. Whew. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I could have done it. I would have given up. Sorry. And number 1, crashing back into orbit. Returning to space is just as complicated as launching yourself into it. It's not as easy as just hoping you'll fall, what with the no gravity thing. Especially when something goes horrifically wrong, all it can take is one tiny little mistake to cause a huge disaster. Soyeon Yi was the first Korean in space, and after what seemed like a pretty good mission to the ISS, she boarded a Soyuz spacecraft alongside 2 other astronauts. Now, as they were returning home, there were some problems with the detachment of the Soyuz capsule, and then the ship had the wrong trajectory. The ship's onboard computers switched them to a ballistic re-entry method, which is a backup method that uses atmospheric drag, but ensures that the heat shield is still protecting inhabitants of the castle. And if you know what that means, let me know. I just read those pretty words on NASA's website and read them for you here. The capsule was coming in far too fast and hot, and they were not even remotely on their course for re-entry. They ended up careening and crash landing 260 miles away from their landing zone in Kazakhstan. Miraculously though, and thankfully, all of the astronauts survived, although they were hospitalized later, but nothing critical. There was no one around to recover them, however. They'd been expecting a recovery crew. There were no helicopters or medical personnel waiting, nothing. They were stranded in the middle of nowhere. Now, readjusting to gravity after spending a lot of time in space is apparently very difficult. Wouldn't know, haven't done it yet. And the crew had to crawl out of the craft and then collapsed into the grass, relieved, shocked, exhausted, but happy to be still kicking. It was then that they were approached by some Kazakhstani nomadic people who probably thought they were aliens. I mean, what else would you expect when you saw people fall from the sky? They tried to get them to a phone, but the nomadic people didn't really have that and didn't understand much, and genuinely just could not imagine what was happening. Could you imagine living the life of a simple sheep herder and then a spaceship crash lands in front of you? The crew ended up using the GPS inside their capsule to contact the Russian space agency, who eventually found the rescue they needed and recovered all 3 astronauts, who were hospitalized upon returning to Korea.
Number 5. Untethered astronaut. On August 22nd, 2022, NASA unleashed a chilling photograph into the vast abyss of doom that is Twitter, a snapshot that left the world collectively gasping for breath. The haunting image featured an untethered astronaut suspended in the inky blackness of space, seemingly mere inches above Earth's fragile horizon. It was a bone-chilling glimpse into the unforgiving void that lies beyond our protective planet. The first thing that strikes you is the astronaut's stark isolation. Against the backdrop of space and our familiar blue and white world, they appear as a minuscule, fragile figure. No lifeline, no tether connecting them to the safety of the International Space Station, just a solitary figure against the cosmic abyss. This photograph instantly transported viewers to the unsettling reality of the astronaut's existence, a realm where the nearest human is not just out of reach, but out of sight. The astronaut's visor was a window into their terrifying predicament. It reflected the expanse of space, capturing the stars that stretched endlessly into the distance. The visor encapsulated the astronaut's vulnerability, a thin layer of protection against the merciless vacuum beyond. It was a cruel juxtaposition, the vast, boundless cosmos mirrored in the helmet of a lone human. The background was a canvas of darkness, punctuated only by the distant stars. Space in this photograph was not the romanticized expanse of exploration we see on movies and TV, but a chilling, desolate void. It was a place where sound ceased to exist, where the cold seeped through every inch of the astronaut's suit, and where the laws of nature showed no mercy. This overwhelming sensation was one of isolation. The image forced viewers to confront the solitude of space in its rawest form. The astronaut, a mere speck in the abyss, was a poignant reminder of our fragility in the grand scheme of the universe. In the end, this terrifying photograph served as a stark testament to the courage and determination of those who venture beyond the bounds of Earth. It encapsulated the stark, unyielding nature of space, where the line between survival and oblivion was razor thin. It was a haunting glimpse into the cold expanse of the cosmos, where humans are but fleeting visitors in a realm that remains indifferent to our existence. I just wonder how they got him back. Number 4. Face on Mars. The enigmatic face on Mars is an iconic image that has captivated imaginations, fueled conspiracy theories, and sparked debates about extraterrestrial life for decades. This unsettling photograph was captured by NASA's Viking 1 orbiter on July 25, 1976, and it depicts a peculiar mesa on the surface of the red planet, bearing an uncanny resemblance to a human face. The first glance at this photograph immediately triggers a sense of dread and intrigue. There, on the barren Martian landscape, lies what appears to be a colossal visage gazing into the depths of space. Its symmetrical features, shadowed eyes, and distinct mouth give it an eerie humanoid quality that is hard to dismiss as mere coincidence. The sense of unease deepens when one considers the context. Mars, often referred to as the Red Planet, is a desolate world with an atmosphere too thin to support human life. The place where desolation and isolation reign supreme. In this stark Martian desert, the presence of a face, a symbol of humanity, is unsettling, as it is a relic of forgotten civilization, a chilling testament to the mysteries that lie beyond our earthly realm. The ambiguity surrounding the origins of this formation adds to its terror. While scientific consensus attributes the face on Mars to the play of light and shadows on a naturally occurring mesa, its undeniable resemblance to a human face fuels speculation that it might be something more. Some have suggested it's an ancient monument, a remnant of an advanced Martian civilization that once thrived but ultimately vanished into cosmic obscurity. The fear also stems from the implications of such a discovery. If the face on Mars were indeed a deliberate creation, it would raise profound questions about the existence of intelligent life beyond Earth. It would shatter the perception that humanity is alone in the universe, opening a Pandora's box of existential questions and fears about our place in the cosmos. In the end, the face on Mars serves as a haunting reminder of the boundless mysteries that space exploration continues to uncover. Whether it's a mere trick of light and geology, or an eerie testament to ancient extraterrestrial civilizations, this iconic image challenges our understanding of the universe and our place within it. It stands as a symbol of the unknown, a symbol of cosmic terror that lingers in the depths of our collective imagination. Number 3. Eye in the Hourglass Nebula. The last thing anyone wants to see when looking into a telescope is space looking back at you. But in 1996, a haunting image was captured. The Hourglass Nebula, a celestial marvel situated some 8,000 light years away from Earth in the constellation Musca, has long been a subject of fascination among astronomers and stargazers alike. It's renowned for its mesmerizing figure-8 shape, but in a haunting image captured by the Hubble Space Telescope, an otherworldly anomaly emerges. A vivid, emerald green eye seemingly gazing out from the very heart of the nebula. This unearthly spectacle presents an unsettling paradox. The serenity of the nebula's symmetrical form contrasting with the eerie intensity of the central eye. The hourglass shape itself, formed by the powerful winds of a dying star at its core, stretches outwards in perfect symmetry, an ethereal ballet of interstellar gases and dust. Yet, within this cosmic dance of creation and destruction, the eye stands as a stark enigma, a watchful alien presence amidst the celestial choreography. The eye's unmistakable green hue, reminiscent of Earth's verdant forests, adds to the disquieting intrigue. It appears almost sentient, as if the nebula itself were a cosmic being, surveying the cosmos with a gaze that transcends time and space. Its radiant emerald glow casts an eerie luminescence across the surrounding nebular regions, imbuing them with an otherworldly ambience. The sense of haunting is amplified by the knowledge that the Hourglass Nebula is a nursery for new stars. While its outer appearance suggests tranquility, this is, in fact, a cosmic cauldron where new celestial bodies are born, and older stars meet their fiery ends. Juxtaposition of creation and annihilation, embodied by the figure-8 shape and the eye at its core, underscores the profound mysteries of the universe. This haunting image evokes contemplation about the cosmic forces at play in the universe, reminding us of the fragility of life and the relentless cycle of birth and death in the cosmos. It challenges our perceptions of the familiar and the alien, inviting us to question the boundaries of what we consider possible. In the end, the Hourglass Nebula's haunting image, with its central green eye, is a testament to the vast, enigmatic beauty of the universe. It's a glimpse into the profound and the eerie, a window into the cosmos that both enchants and unsettles, leaving us with a sense of wonder and cosmic dread as we ponder the mysteries that lie beyond the stars. Number 2. Bones on Mars. The discovery of bones on Mars is a revelation that sends shivers down the spine, challenging our fundamental understanding of the universe and igniting existential questions about the possibility of extraterrestrial life and its implications. In a haunting image, captured by a rover exploring the Martian surface, an eerie collection of bone-like structures is sprawled across the rusty red landscape. The image is a stark reminder of the desolation of Mars. Its barren, windswept terrain is devoid of any signs of life as we know it. Yet, here, unmistakably, are what appear to be skeletal remains, relics of a life form that once inhabited the red planet. The bones are bleached white, standing in stark contrast to the Martian soil, as if they were placed there deliberately to be discovered. The mere presence of bones on Mars challenges the boundaries of our understanding. How did these remains come to be? Are they the remnants of an ancient Martian species, now long extinct? Or is there a more sinister explanation? The unanswered questions weigh heavily on the mind, casting a pall of dread over the discovery. The image is particularly terrifying because it raises the specter of an unknown cosmic predator. The bones seem to suggest a creature with a skeletal structure, not dissimilar from earthly animals, and the thought of an alien predator lurking on Mars sends a shiver down the spine. What else lies hidden beneath the Martian surface, waiting to be unearthed by intrepid explorers? Furthermore, the discovery of Martian bones ignites fear about contamination. If these bones are indeed remnants of ancient life, what potential threats do they pose to future human exploration on Mars? Could they carry diseases or microorganisms that might jeopardize our efforts to colonize the red planet? Ultimately, the image of bones found on Mars is a chilling reminder of the unknown and the unknowable. It forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the eerie possibilities that exist beyond our terrestrial realm. It's a haunting glimpse into a cosmic enigma, a puzzle with pieces that are simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. And it leaves us with a sense of awe and cosmic dread as we grapple with the mysteries that Mars continues to unveil. I just wonder what those bones belong to. I hope not a dog. dogs should never die. And at number 1, Plutonian slugs. Yeah, you heard that right. There might be slugs on the black sheep of the solar system. The discovery of horrifying space slugs on Pluto is a nightmarish revelation that defies all expectations of the icy dwarf planet. In an image captured by a deep space probe sent to explore the outer reaches of our solar system, the cosmic horror unfolds before our eyes. A colony of grotesque, gelatinous creatures resembling monstrous slugs, lurking on the distant world of Pluto. The image is nothing short of terrifying. Against the frigid backdrop of Pluto's desolate landscape, these extraterrestrial slugs writhe and slither. Their amorphous, translucent bodies seem to defy the laws of biology as we understand them. Each slug is riddled with grotesque, undulating appendages that move with a sickening rhythm, giving them an otherworldly, repulsive appearance. The very notion of life on Pluto is a chilling paradox. The planet's extreme cold, lack of atmosphere, and its location on the outer fringes of the solar system make it one of the most inhospitable places in our celestial neighborhood. That these nightmarish creatures not only exist, but thrive in such a hostile environment is the stuff of cosmic horror. The behavior of these space slugs adds to the terror. They seem to feed on some unknown source, perhaps subsisting on elements unique to Pluto's surface. Their movements are slow and deliberate, and their inscrutable motives leave us with an impending sense of dread. Are they the sole inhabitants of this frozen wasteland, or are they part of a larger, more sinister ecosystem that is yet to reveal itself? Furthermore, the presence of these creatures raises troubling questions about the potential consequences of interstellar contamination. Could these space slugs harbor deadly pathogens or alien microorganisms that might pose a threat to future missions to Pluto or other celestial bodies? The fear of unknowingly unleashing a cosmic menace upon our world adds an extra layer of dread to the discovery. I, for one, think we should never even try going to Pluto, if there really are slugs there. They're gross enough here on Earth, could you imagine how slimy alien ones are? I'll give you a hint. Very slimy.
Coming at number 5 now, we have James McDivitt. James Alton Jim McDivitt was born on June 10th, 1929 and lived his life under the glorious title of NASA Astronaut. Now, he was commander under the Gemini 4 flight, where fellow pilot Ed White performed the first ever US spacewalk, which paved the way towards the moon landings and modern space exploration as we know it. Now, later in life, he became manager of lunar landing operations and was the program manager for the Apollo spacecraft mission, so he's got quite a few feathers in his cap. However, it was even weirder then when James McDivitt claimed that he saw something very weird while up there in space. During the 1965 Gemini 4 mission, plainly put, James McDivitt spotted a UFO. So convinced of the fact, McDivitt even spoke about the event in an official interview with NASA. He said, "I looked outside, glanced up, and there was something out there. It had a geometrical shape similar to a beer can or a pop can. It was all white." The press took hold of this story and went wild, and reports of the UFO went global. It wasn't until years later though that McDivitt retracted on his statement and put the whole thing to bed. Or maybe that's just what the government told him to do.
Next up at number 4 we have Yang Liwei. Yang Liwei, born 21st of June 1965, is a Major General, military pilot and astronaut of CNSA, China's equivalent of NASA. In 2003 he was the first person sent into space by the Chinese space program, gaining national notoriety as a grade A certified badass. It was weirder still then that during his maiden flight into space he recalled hearing a repeated knock on the body of the space vessel. He described it as sounding like someone knocking on an iron bucket with a wooden hammer. Imagine that, you're alone in a tiny spacecraft in the endless abyss of space, and then you hear someone knocking, trying to get in. Also, there's the fact that space is a vacuum and it's a given that there's no medium for sound to travel within. It got even weirder though, because in later separate missions in 2005 and 2008 respectively, subsequent astronauts reported similar sounds with the same consistent knocking. Well, who knows what it was, but whatever wanted to get in thankfully didn't yet. What do you think of that?
I don't know why I think of that. Literally.
If you were up in space and you heard someone knocking at your door.
I mean, I'd probably just open the door and get it over with right there. If I'm going to die anyway, I might as well do it on my own terms, you know.
You're pretty claustrophobic though.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in space in the first place.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, I'd avoid that whole situation
Prevented.
altogether. Exactly, I'm doing it right now. Alright then, Jumping in now at the number 3 spot, we've got Neil Armstrong. You may have heard of him, the world's most famous astronaut. Neil Alden Armstrong was born on August 5th, 1930 and sadly passed away at the ripe old age of 82 in August of 2012. Now during his time, Neil Armstrong was heralded as the first superstar man and was at the forefront of the world's fascination with space travel. After all, he was the first man to walk on the moon, or in a film studio if you're bored and angry. But several theorists believe that something entirely different went down whilst Neil took his stroll on the moon. According to retired Chief of NASA Communications Maurice Chatelain, only moments before Armstrong stepped down the ladder to set his first step on the moon, 2 UFOs apparently hovered overhead. During this time, there was 2 minutes of radio silence that NASA attributed to a television camera overheating, which apparently disrupted the reception. Okay, sure. Well, what did Neil Armstrong say in those 2 silent minutes? "These babies were huge, sir. I'm telling you there are other spacecraft out here lined up on the far side of the crater's edge. They're on the moon watching us." Mr. Armstrong kept his lips tightly sealed until he passed away, but there are some people that still firmly believe that in 1969 not only did we land on the moon, but we may have also discovered alien life there as well. I think this leaves conspiracy theorists with a little bit of a dilemma. How could NASA cover up the alien meetings if it was all filmed on Earth? Something has got to go, and it might be reality.
And bringing it in at number 2, we have Vladimir Kavano. Phew, this one is a bit of a doozy. On May 5th, 1981, Soviet hero and cosmonaut Major General Vladimir Kavano made a claim that still perplexes people to this very day. According to Vladimir, he had just finished doing some outer space maneuvering outside the Salyut orbital space station when he looked out of a porthole and saw something that would make his hair stand on end. Unlike in America though, Vladimir was encouraged to openly express exactly what he saw when he returned home, where he described it in a Moscow press conference. He began by saying that many cosmonauts had seen phenomena far beyond the experiences of the people of Earth. At the time of this mission, he was over an area of South Africa, moving towards an area of the Indian Ocean. As he turned, he saw through a porthole an object which he could not explain. And then something happened that blew his mind. Seemingly impossible according to the laws of physics, the object became elliptical, appearing to rotate in flight direction. Before it could move forward though, an explosion happened of bright, beautiful golden light, followed by a second further explosion. After the blast, Vladimir saw a weird white smoke, then a cloud-like sphere, before the scene disappeared from his view. Now, if you believe this guy, then what he describes kind of sounds like faster than light travel, and some alien species just decided they'd pop in and say hello and show off their technology. Who knows? But if you believe this Russian cosmonaut, then who's to say that they're not still out there?
Well, I mean, I don't think the Russians have ever lied about anything, ever. I can't think of one instance where...
I didn't expect you to say that.
No, actually, I definitely believe the cosmonauts, maybe more than the astronauts. I do think there's a culture in the US of
I mean,
hush hush.
he doesn't really have reason to lie though, really. No one's saying it's not a trick of the light or, you know, something bouncing off somewhere, but he's up there. He's smart enough to get up there. Stupid people don't go to space.
No.
So
I don't think that. Would they kill him for that? Would they kill him for saying that? As long as it's not hurting.
he's a hero.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine. Alright, finally now at number 1, we've got Gordon Cooper. Gordon Cooper, aka the first American to have a nap in space during his 34-hour Mercury 9 mission, which was launched in 1963. He was born in Oklahoma in 1927. Gordon Cooper was a pretty level-headed, softly spoken guy and racked up some pretty incredible, valuable missions into space, as well as other critical research that came with it. He was possibly the most vocal advocate of the life forms that lurk in the depths of space, so much so that he even went to the United Nations conference to submit his extraterrestrial claims. Now during his 22-hour orbit trip around Earth, as he floated above Perth, Australia, Cooper suddenly noticed a strange green glowing object approaching the Mercury capsule that he was flying in. Sounds weird, doesn't it? Well, Gordon Cooper definitely thought so too, and he was convinced that he was witnessing some sort of alien life in action. Well, the object that he saw was actually picked up by a radar tracking station in Moochia, Australia, and Cooper reported the incident via radio while he was on the mission. When he landed, things got a little bit hush-hush, you could say, and Gordon Cooper's incident was swept under the rug. When questioned, NBC reporters were explicitly told that he was unavailable to comment regarding the strange green sighting. What do you guys think of that?
What do I think? Gordon Cooper sounds pretty legit though. To go to the UN and say, guys, I saw an alien up there.
Yeah.
That's a Take some brass tacks.
I was going to say that not everyone can do that. You know, I don't want anyone watching this to think, oh, I saw a UFO as well. I'll just go to the UN and tell them about it.
How do you submit that?
No, yeah, they don't care. Unless you've been to space, they don't care. Don't try.
Does that mean if you have been to space, you can say whatever you want?
You can say whatever you want. You can talk to the UN all day. Do you think we've got anyone who's actually been to space watching this?
Starting off this countdown, we have Apollo 1. On January 27th, 1964, a fire took the lives of 3 astronauts during a launch rehearsal test. A damaged wire was the cause of this fire. Then a spark in the spacecraft ignited a flame. The high-pressure pure oxygen environment was the perfect catalyst for a fire to start. Then the foam pads and nylon netting in the craft added fuel to the fire. Poor astronauts struggled to get out and ended up perishing in the flames. Their last communication went as so. Ed White yelled, "Fire!" into his headset. Then Gus Grissom yelled, "I've got a fire in the cockpit." Then the third astronaut, Roger Chaffee, yelled, "Fire!" as well. The last thing they all said was, "Get us out." This transmission was then followed by their screams as they were engulfed in the flames. The last thing they said was a plea for help for somebody to get them out of there before they died. Oh, that is so dark. It just sends shivers down my spine. In our 4th spot, we have the Lost Cosmonaut. Back in the 1950s, 2 brothers, Achille and Giovanni Giudica, were working as amateur radio operators. They gathered together old gear and set up shop in an old bunker. In 1960, they came across something pretty terrifying. So they claimed that they got signals from a Soviet cosmonaut that was lost in space. Apparently, she was returning to Earth's orbit when everything began to go wrong. Her spacecraft was malfunctioning, and in the recording, the woman, speaking in Russian, is pleading for help, saying it's getting hot. Then the spacecraft bursts into flames. Thankfully, they saved the recording so that they could share it with others. Now, the Soviets denied this, saying that it was an unmanned craft that burned. But the thing is, a lot of cosmonauts died during the space race. But the Soviet Union refused to reveal those deaths. Half the time, they would just cover them up. So it could be that this recording is real and captures the last moments of this woman pleading for her life. Moving on to number 3, we have the Soyuz 11. On June 6, 1971, 3 Soviet cosmonauts launched into space. Their goal was to make a record for the longest time spent in space. Sadly, the mission failed and they became the first people to die in space. Now, the spacecraft landed perfectly, but when the team opened the hatch, they found all 3 crew members dead. Their faces filled with dark blue spots and blood dripping from their ears and noses. What happened was their breathing ventilation valve ruptured. They died from decompression. They died within seconds. It happened so fast that they couldn't even get a word out. So I'm kind of cheating by putting this one on the list, but the last thing heard from them was a gasp for air, then a weird popping sound, probably from the air in their lungs expanding from the drop in air pressure and being exposed to the vacuum of space. To me, that is more terrifying than hearing them plead for mercy. Like, you're literally hearing them die. In our 2nd spot, we have Vladimir Komarov. Vladimir Komarov was a Soviet test pilot, aerospace engineer, and cosmonaut. In 1967, he was sent on the Soyuz 1. The mission ended very badly though. Here's the thing. The spacecraft was very faulty. There was 203 structural problems with it. The thing is, Vladimir kind of didn't have a choice. He was forced to go on this mission. If he didn't go, then the backup pilot, who was his best friend, would have to go. And he said he didn't want to do that to his friend, so he went and sacrificed his life instead. Wow, that's just true friend goals right there. What a hero. Anyways, once he began to orbit Earth, a number of issues began to happen, like the antennas didn't open properly. It was his re-entry into Earth that killed him though. On April 24th, 1967, Vladimir crashed full speed into Earth after a parachute failure. Only a chipped heel bone survived the crash. His body was found as a badly charred lump. On his way down, translators heard him say, "Heat is rising in the capsule." He then began to curse the people who put him inside of this botched spaceship. He was yelling, saying that they killed him. His final moments were him crying and cursing in rage. As a result of this incident, Vladimir became the first human to die on a space mission. Imagine hearing those final moments though. That would just change your life forever. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Challenger. On January 28, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger broke apart during the flight. It happened only 73 seconds into the flight. This resulted in the death of all 7 crew members on board. The crew consisted of 5 NASA astronauts and 2 payload specialists. Basically, what happened was at 11:39 a.m., the shuttle started to break down over the Atlantic Ocean. It started because of a failure of the O-ring seal in the right solid rocket booster. From there, the right solid rocket booster failed during takeoff. Then the force of the takeoff basically caused the rocket to break apart. Now, it's thought that some crew survived the initial breakup, but the impact onto the ocean surface would have killed them. The last words came from pilot Michael J. Smith. All they heard was him say, "uh-oh," before they lost communication with them altogether. It's believed that the uh-oh came after they felt a huge jolt from the shuttle breaking apart. That's the last thing he ever said. It was later retrieved from the flight deck tape recorder from the ocean floor 2 months after this incident. Now, here's where it gets even darker and twisted. Apparently, a secret tape was leaked from NASA. On this tape, it was revealed that the recording continued on after the uh-oh. After that, you could hear someone yelling, "What happened? What happened? Oh God, no." And then you could hear screams and cries. Someone began to pray, others began to curse. One of the astronauts can be heard saying, "Can't breathe," choking. Another can be heard yelling, "We are dead." Now, apparently this is a hoax and the tape has been debunked, but some NASA employees have admitted to hearing way more after the uh-oh, and NASA is just covering it up.
Number 5 on this list is that green orb. Major Gordon Cooper was one of the earliest American astronauts there was. He was the last astronaut to ever fly in space completely by himself, a feat that's honestly just terrifying if you ask me. While he was out there in space, Cooper saw something that he couldn't explain and something that just doesn't make any sense. It was a rapidly approaching green orb, something that was actually picked up by the radar system that was tracking him in Australia. He couldn't fully make out what it was, but he knew that it was a big object and that it was glowing green. Cooper has since come out and discussed his strong belief in UFOs and aliens. It turns out that UFO sightings are not as uncommon as we may think for astronauts or the government, that these sightings happen very frequently and are very often covered up. For many years, I have lived with a secret, and a secrecy imposed on all specialists in astronautics. I can now reveal that every day in the USA, our radar instruments capture objects of form and composition unknown to us. And there are thousands of witness reports and a quantity of documents to prove this, but nobody wants to make them public. Why? Because authority is afraid that people may think of God knows what kind of horrible invaders. So the password still is, we have to avoid panic by all means. Now that's a direct quotation from Major Gordon Cooper discussing the truth behind his sighting and many other sightings that the government makes on the daily. If this is factual and the government actually does see these anomalies all the time, then it's totally reasonable to believe Cooper saw a real-life UFO while he was in space that time. It should also be noted that when he landed, he was told that reporters were not allowed to ask him about his sighting and to keep it under wraps. Seems to me like these astronauts and the government know some stuff that they don't want getting out. Number 4 on this list is space snakes. Franklin Story Musgrave is a former NASA astronaut who spent over 53 days in space. He's extremely intelligent, having 6 separate degrees, and definitely knows about space since he went on 6 separate missions there. That's why when he came out and spoke about seeing a massive space-like eel up there, it really shocked the world. On 2 of my missions, and I still don't have an answer, I have seen a snake out there, 6, 7, 8 feet long. It's rubbery because it has internal waves in it and it follows you for a rather long period of time. The more you fly in space, the more you see an incredible amount of things out there, and that sort of brings to you really a certainty that other living creatures are out there. Some incredibly primitive, more primitive, some just proteins coming together, amino acids, and some just single cell organisms and other civilizations that have been around for 1 million years that are doing unimaginable kinds of things. 6, 7, 8 feet long. You heard that right, guys. I know that he goes on to talk about proteins coming together and stuff, but that seems like a lot more than just a few amino acids to me. That's a big creature that he saw not only one time, but on two very separate and different occasions. This is a full-on NASA astronaut who is super well educated, coming out and talking about a massive eel in space. Now, he's the only one who's come out and spoken about such things. However, there was a picture released from the Mars rover with potential evidence of a snake. Take a look at that image right there. That looks a lot like a snake to me, and if there's one chilling on Mars, then there's no reason to think that there couldn't be one in space either. If this is true, then more astronauts definitely must know about this, and they must be trying to keep it under wraps for a reason. Maybe they don't want the public to freak out about these space snakes, maybe they're just scared of them themselves and aren't ready to release the info yet. But whatever the case may be, it's starting to look like our slithering pals aren't just here on Earth. Number 2 on this list is space pee. Okay, so I know how that sounds. No, I'm not talking about some evil urine alien that somebody spotted or some massive pea planet. But this entry is just more about how hard it is to actually live up there in space and the realities of the situation. Also, I guess this is less of a secret, but more of something that just doesn't get talked about enough considering how much it must suck. But listen to this statistic, guys. If you want to go into space and live up there for 1 year, which I frankly don't really understand why you would want to do, but anyways, let's assume that you do want to do that. If you want to go live there for 1 year, then you're gonna need to drink 730 liters of your own urine and sweat. 730 liters. That is 730 milk bags worth of your own excrement that you now need to consume. Now, I obviously have to point out that this is recycled urine and recycled sweat, so you don't need to just pee in a cup and then take a sip or anything like that. But this just goes to show how difficult it is to come by water in space. It's so difficult to get water that we literally need to constantly reuse what we have in our bodies already. Like, you basically never get any new water in your system for an entire year if you go to space. You're just reusing the old water over and over and over again. Honestly, after hearing this stat, guys, I have no idea how these billionaires think that we're getting to Mars. Like, sure, build a ship that can take us there, manufacture a shelter that could withstand the elements, but how about water, dudes? You know, that thing that we need? I don't want to move to Mars and just live off of pee for the rest of my life. Anyways, big respect to the astronauts out there who have to do this for a whole year. You guys are way stronger than me. Finally, number 1 on this list is changing DNA. This one is definitely a weird one and honestly pretty scary. Ranker writes, astronaut Scott Kelly, who spent a year at the International Space Station in 2016, returned to find that he was 2 inches taller than his departing height. The new physical differences between Kelly and his identical brother Mike, also an astronaut, were startling. Scientists compared the DNA of the two and found that, besides growing 2 inches, Kelly's gut bacteria were completely different and his gene expression had changed. Scientists concluded that the changes were caused by the stresses of space travel, which can cause changes in a cell's biological pathways. Although Kelly eventually returned to his original height, his other genetic changes are seemingly irreversible, meaning Kelly and his brother are no longer identical twins. So that's honestly pretty insane. If we go to space, our DNA can just literally change on us. Obviously, we have no idea how this works, but think about the potential that this could have. Is it possible to harness this ability? To be able to send someone into space and cure a disease that they were born with? Like, this truly feels like some Fantastic Four level stuff right here, where we can actually change our human makeup. Granted, we need to look at it from the other angle as well. Could this be extremely detrimental? Yeah, I think it definitely could. You could go into space and then have your DNA totally change on you in a way that's for the worse, causing you lifelong problems after that. I had no idea that this was something that could happen in space, but it's definitely something that we need to do some more research on because, like, it could be wild.
Number 5, the training is brutal. When you were young, did you ever dream of being an astronaut? I think most of us did. You know, dreaming of being a cosmic sailor, soaring through the Milky Way. I know I certainly did. I thought about how I'd ace the training. I'd be the perfect astronaut. I'd be this golden-haired hero of space, like a Luke Skywalker or a guy on an old pulp novel cover or something. Well, the movies and the media makes being an astronaut out to being a lot more glamorous and a lot easier than it is. I mean, We saw Homer Simpson do it and we figured we all could. But the truth is, they really do not take just about anybody. You already need to be a brilliant scientist and have an exceptional, spotless military career. So they're not just taking anybody, they are taking the best of the best of the best, the top 1% of the 1%. And they need people who can withstand incredible tolls on their body and are able to handle any problem that could be thrown their way in space. Turns out going to space, not that easy. These physical tasks include things like wilderness survival training, spending days surviving alone in the wilds, on the off chance that your ship crashes on re-entry in the middle of nowhere and you need to be able to fend for yourself before rescue comes. As well, training includes things like swimming laps in a 200-pound spacesuit or spending literally 24 hours in a row submerged underwater to stimulate the feeling of floating around in a giant suit. Or how about taking a trip on the infamous Vomit Comet, the plane that flies in parabolas to induce weightlessness and zero gravity to get your body used to floating around before you do it for real, and more often than not has astronauts tasting what they had for lunch one more time. That's about the most pleasant way I can think to say that. That doesn't quite sound like the fun, carefree adventure I dreamed of as a kid. And if you're looking for more scary stories, strange space stories, UFO sightings, we have got plenty of that and way more on Top 5 Scary. Plus, just about everything scary you could ever think of above the sun and below it. So tap that bell and stay subscribed and don't miss a single scream. Number 4, it destroys your body. Even if you are one of those best of the best of the best who can handle the brutal training that thins out the herd, once you actually do get up into space properly, just existing ravages your body in all sorts of fun, terrifying ways you've never thought of. When you think about it, we really are not meant to be up in that environment. It's kind of like a fish trying to survive on land. So it's not much of a surprise that our body kind of reacts violently poorly to the new conditions. Here's a terrible one I bet you didn't know about. I bet you didn't know that astronauts' gloves are so tight and sealed that when they take them off, I'm actually gonna gag, astronauts lose their fingernails. They get pulled like right off, and frequently they break and sprain their fingers just taking their gloves off. Or maybe you didn't know that most astronauts, after entering zero gravity for the first time, vomit almost immediately, even if they've had tons of training and simulator experience. And this is not made better at all because, where is that vomit going? It's just floating around you for everyone to see. Literally just being alive in space is bad for your body. You can just be sitting, vibing by the window, and it's gonna do damage to you. Astronauts who spend extended time in a space station report a huge loss of bone density, reporting horrible creaking and pains. They even shrink a little bit. Some astronauts note that when they got back to Earth, their spine had to straighten back out in an incredibly painful process. But when asked what the worst part of space life is, one astronaut, Tim Peake, responded saying, "It's watching the soles of your feet disintegrate." I am gonna do my level best to explain this next thing to you without vomiting, but I cannot promise anything. He described that because astronauts use their feet so rarely in space, their soles start to soften like a newborn baby's. And the feet gradually force off all the dead skin and calluses that you build up over a lifetime of walking. Meaning sometimes astronauts, when they remove their socks, shower the cabin with a lifetime of dead skin flakes and big chunks of foot floating around the space station like the literal most disgusting snow globe imaginable. Number 3, and your mental too. The thing is, it's not just your body that is going to be put through the absolute ringer when you find yourself with a career floating up in the stars. Your mental faculties need to be sharper than anyone and able to deal with anything that could possibly get thrown at you as you're floating up miles away from home. It's no wonder David Bowie and Elton John wrote so many songs about how sad it is to be up in space. Astronauts report feeling a wide array of mental health struggles, reporting that the isolation causes them loneliness, depression, anxiety, stress, fatigue, mood swings, concentration issues, and some even getting full-blown PTSD upon returning back to the Earth. But, I get it. Imagine the workload. Imagine working a grueling day, not just any regular day. A day where if your work goes wrong, you could lead to one of or many of your teammates' deaths, and then having to go to sleep in a cold space station away from your loved ones and do that over and over again for 100 days straight. Imagine you have a bad day at work in space. You can't even go home about it. You gotta go home to space. Sleeping on a space station is far from a cozy night in a crib either. For one, there's constant noise all around you on a space station. Nobody can hear you scream in space, that much is true, but everybody can hear all the engines and computers and all that stuff going off inside the space station, meaning there's never a quiet moment. It's also not as dark as you might hope. Not only do you have to deal with the fact that your sleep cycle is no longer tied to the sunrise and sunset anymore, because you're going to see about 16 of those a day, but you have to tend with flashing lights all over the station from the machinery, but as well lights that are thought to be caused by cosmic rays passing through your eyelids. As well, there's also, no gravity. They definitely tell you that. Imagine having to tie yourself to a wall to avoid bumping your head around a cabin while you're just trying to get your 8 hours and a little REM time. Number 2, brown trout and recycling. Okay. This is going to be the grossest part of the list by far. If you want to skip right ahead to number 1, I get it. There's a reason I put this at number 2, and you'll all understand in a second. Just know I'm a child and I have the sense of humor of an 8-year-old. When you compare all the physical and mental danger astronauts have to face, is going to the toilet scarier than the risk of death? It honestly sounds like it. Peggy Whitson is an astronaut who holds a ton of records. Foremost, she's got the record for the most time spent in space, spending nearly 2 full years in orbit. She's spoken out and said that her least favorite part of living in space is the bathroom. Now, number 1 is considered to be a little easier, but it does not sound enjoyable in any way. A little hose, you attach it and it sucks the urine out, and then a machine converts that into drinking water because, astronauts drink a lot of their own pee. Now, admittedly, it's heavily processed, okay? You're not getting it out of the water cooler, it's not coming out yellow. But on a spaceship, water is sacred. Much like the still suits of Arrakis, all liquids and fluids are recycled. The water you wash your hands with, excrete, or spit out brushing your teeth, all of that is collected, processed, recycled to be drank again. Try not to think about that too much. Every astronaut you've ever seen on the news has drank so much pee. Astronauts have to fill a glorified porta potty pit and then put on a special rubber glove and pack it down nice and compact to be processed. But in zero gravity, things happen, and more often than any astronaut would ever care to admit, sometimes the mission goes a bit bad. Chris Hadfield said his crew would refer to these incidents as brown trouts. I'm not going to explain it, I think you understand. Leroy Chiao, retired astronaut, spoke on his time on the station and said sternly that everyone cleans up their own mess when it happens, but he didn't elaborate on what that meant, but you can read through the lines pretty easy. When you were a little kid dreaming about life in space, did you ever consider that the world's best and brightest minds would be putting on the poop glove to catch brown trouts? And I am so sorry for the mental image I have given you. Number 1, danger. And above all else, if it hasn't been made exceedingly clear yet in this video, the life of an astronaut is not an easy one and oftentimes is extremely dangerous, with anything being able to go wrong spelling a certain disaster. Everything needs to be perfect. Now, you could look up countless stories of astronauts in danger, but I'm going to share one from Chris Hadfield because he's a Canadian icon. He spoke to BuzzFeed News about how on his first flight ever, he and fellow astronauts had to navigate a 250,000-pound space station towards a target the size of a coffee cup on the Russian Mir space station. Hadfield was there to relay the speed and range information to the pilot as they were pulling in for a docking maneuver, which had to be incredibly precise. In Hadfield's own words, if you hit the Mir too soft, the spring mechanisms bounce you off. If you hit the Mir just a little bit too hard, well, then you risk breaking the station in half and ending the lives of everybody on board. So you've got to hit it exactly right. No pressure or anything. When the shuttle crew was about 30 feet away, 2 sensors started telling them 2 different things. One of them said that they were at 32 feet away, and the other one said 20 feet away. Hadfield said, they're either both wrong or one of them is completely wrong. Now what do you do? There's nobody to ask, and if the crew on board this shuttle doesn't solve this problem in the next 30 seconds, then this is it for everybody. Hadfield described using his thumb to try and measure the distance from the window. This told him they were about 21 feet away, and he used a stopwatch to try and do the math to figure out how fast they were going, and when they should fire thrusters. And well, like since I mentioned, Chris Hadfield is a national hero and not a national tragedy, we know they did end up hitting the target at the correct speed, even with 3 seconds to spare. Hadfield said the shuttle crew didn't even say a word until a few minutes after, when the shock had finally worn off, and one of the members of the crew said, "Hey, we did it, we're actually here." It goes to show that astronauts need to be razor sharp to be able to think on the fly like that, and really do need to be the best of the best to handle what they do up there.
Number 5. The knock. In the history of space exploration, one chilling incident stands out as a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond our atmosphere. It was a seemingly routine mission, yet it left its mark on astronaut Yang Li Wei, forever etching a chilling experience into the history of human spaceflight. As the first Chinese astronaut to orbit the Earth aboard the Shenzhou 5 spacecraft, Yang Li Wei encountered a phenomenon that defied explanation and sent shivers down his spine: a persistent and unnerving knocking sound. Which is especially strange considering that sound doesn't travel in space due to the lack of air. On that fateful flight, as the spacecraft traversed the cosmos in the cold embrace of space, Yang Li Wei suddenly found himself enveloped in an eerie silence. The hum of machinery and the steady rhythm of life support systems were abruptly replaced by an unsettling, rhythmic knocking sound that echoed through the confines of his capsule. The chilling sensation of being alone in the void, accompanied only by this enigmatic and inexplicable noise, must have been an isolating and deeply unsettling experience. Yang Li Wei, a seasoned fighter pilot chosen for his remarkable courage and resilience, quickly assesses the situation. He meticulously checked the spacecraft's instruments, carefully examined every nook and cranny, and scrutinized every piece of equipment that could potentially be the source of the disturbing sound. Yet, despite his best efforts, he could find no rational explanation. The sound persisted, echoing through the metal walls of the spacecraft like an ominous reminder of the mysteries that lay beyond human understanding. As Yang Li Wei later recounted the experience to ground control, his voice betrayed a mix of anxiety and intrigue. His words conveyed the deep-rooted fear that even in the pinnacle of human technological achievement, there were realms of the cosmos that remained untouched by scientific knowledge. The sound he described was unlike anything he had ever heard, a series of distinct metallic knocks that rocked the world to its very core. The knocking sound, like an ethereal specter, gradually subsided as the mission progressed. Yang Li Wei successfully completed his orbit and returned to Earth, carrying with him not only the accolades of a trailblazing spacefarer, but also an enigmatic encounter that would linger in his memory forever. Decades later, the mystery of that chilling knocking sound endures. Was it an external force, a cosmic anomaly, or perhaps a mere glitch in the spacecraft systems? Yang Li Wei's experience serves as a stark reminder that despite our advances in space exploration, there are realms of the universe that remain beyond our grasp, their secrets hidden in the void. The knocking sound remains an unsolved puzzle, a chilling testament to the unknown that continues to beckon humanity to venture further into the darkness and unravel the enigmas that await. Next up at number 4, UFO sightings. Few incidents stand as chilling and inexplicable as the UFO sightings experienced by astronaut Gordon Cooper. His illustrious career as a pilot and Mercury and Gemini astronaut was not only marked by groundbreaking space missions, but also by a series of spine-tingling encounters with unidentified flying objects that defied explanation. Cooper's first unnerving brush with the unknown occurred during his tenure as a Mercury astronaut. In the early 1960s, while conducting a mission, he reported a startling sight: a cluster of shimmering, metallic objects dancing across the horizon of space. These mysterious crafts, unlike any known human technology, seem to possess an otherworldly elegance as they move about through the cosmos. But it was Cooper's later Gemini missions that plunged him into the heart of darkness. During one harrowing spacewalk, Cooper claimed to have spotted a colossal, saucer-shaped craft ominously hovering nearby. The chilling silence of space was shattered by the sensation of an unblinking gaze within the craft, a gaze that seemed to pierce through his very soul. His frantic attempts to communicate with ground control all were met with baffling interference, a sinister reminder that he was not alone. But that's not all. Perhaps the most spine-tingling of Cooper's encounters occurred during his post-astronaut career. After leaving NASA, he embarked on a covert mission to delve into the mysteries of these elusive crafts. Deep within the desert, he stumbled upon a cache of classified documents that detailed a government cover-up of extraterrestrial visitations. The chilling revelations within these documents painted a picture of a world in the grip of shadowy forces, desperately concealing the truth about humanity's contact with otherworldly beings. As Cooper delved deeper into this disturbing conspiracy, he found himself pursued by enigmatic figures, their faces obscured by shadows and their motives shrouded in secrecy. He received chilling warnings to cease his investigations, and was plagued by unexplained phenomena that left him haunted and terrified. Cooper's relentless pursuit of the truth led him to a secluded location, where he claimed to have made contact with beings from another realm, a communion that left him forever changed and haunted by the knowledge he had unearthed. He died in 2004 of heart failure at 77. But if he was around during the famous Grush hearing, you bet your sweet butts he would have testified. At number 3, space music. In May 1969, as the world held its breath in anticipation of the impending Apollo 11 moon landing, the Apollo 10 crew, Eugene Cernan, John Young, and Thomas Stafford, embarked on a critical mission to test the lunar module in preparation for the historic event. What they encountered on the dark side of the moon, however, was beyond any conceivable expectation, a haunting symphony emanating from the depths of the cosmos. As the lunar module drifted through the void, out of contact with both Earth and the command module, the astronauts found themselves in an isolated realm of unparalleled silence. Suddenly, from the vast expanse of the dark side of the moon, a series of peculiar and melodic tones enveloped their spacecraft. The strange and ethereal music reverberated through their headsets, filling the void with an eerie serenade that defied explanation. Startled and perplexed, the Apollo 10 crew frantically searched for a rational source of the anomalous music. They checked their instruments, reviewed their systems, and explored every conceivable avenue for a logical explanation. However, despite their meticulous efforts, no scientific or technological source could be identified. The enigmatic sounds continued to echo through the void, evoking a surreal atmosphere that resonated deep within their souls. Astronaut Eugene Cernan, who would later become the last human to leave the moon's surface during the Apollo 17 mission, recounted the uncanny experience in interviews. He described the strange music as outer space type music, a haunting melody that seemed to defy the laws of physics and the known mechanics of sound propagation in the vacuum of space. The encounter was so unnerving that the crew hesitated to share the experience with the world, fearing that it might be dismissed as a hallucination or a product of their imagination. At least it's just music playing on the dark side of the moon, and not the Ark out of Transformers, right guys? Does anyone get that reference? Staying on theme of the moon landing at number 2, moon babies? The historic moment when astronaut Neil Armstrong set foot on the lunar surface during the Apollo 11 mission marked an unparalleled achievement in human history. However, this momentous event also comes with a chilling finding that's been covered up for a while now. Amid the triumphant roar of mankind's lunar achievement, an inexplicable silence descended. As if orchestrated by an unseen hand, NASA's communication with Armstrong momentarily faltered, shrouding the world in a cloak of eerie stillness. Yet, within those enigmatic moments of radio silence, a haunting message materialized. Allegedly, Armstrong said in that brief moment of silence, and I quote, "These babies were huge, sir. Enormous. Oh God, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, there are other spacecrafts out here, lined up on the far side of the crater's edge. They're on the moon watching us." I don't know if he meant babies literally or not, but it's pretty creepy either way. This clandestine revelation cast a foreboding shadow over the moon landing, suggesting a malevolent presence lurking just beyond the lunar horizon. Were those colossal entities mere mirages or spectral sentinels of an extraterrestrial realm? The implications are as spine-chilling as they are incomprehensible, thrusting humanity into a realm of cosmic terror. Yet, as the years passed, attempts to substantiate the haunting message withered in the winds of ambiguity. Skepticism and disbelief swirled like mist around the tale, obscuring its validity. Was it a phantom radio signal, a psychological glitch in the isolated void, or a scripted hoax crafted to tantalize and torment the inquisitive minds of Earth? Regardless of its authenticity, the words Armstrong spoke struck a chord of fear among the hearts of many. They beckon us to ponder the depths of the universe's secrets. The tale serves as a chilling reminder that even amid humanity's most celebrated achievements, the cosmos remains a realm of haunting uncertainty, where the boundaries between reality and the supernatural blur into an unsettling tapestry of the unknown. As we gaze at the moon, its serene visage now forever etched in our collective memory, we can't help but wonder what other chilling mysteries lie concealed in the shadows of the celestial expanse. Moving on to number 1, Space Snake. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, where the boundaries of the known and the mysterious blur, astronaut Story Musgrave found himself face to face with an enigma that defied explanation, the haunting apparition known as the Space Snake. Musgrave's remarkable journey into the unknown occurred during the STS-80 mission, a space shuttle endeavor that propelled him into the annals of both scientific discovery and eerie encounters. As the STS-80 mission unfolded, Musgrave and his crewmates embarked on their orbital dance around the Earth, conducting a series of experiments and observations that pushed the frontiers of human understanding. Yet, amidst their scientific pursuits, a surreal and unexpected sight materialized before their eyes, a sinuous, serpentine form weaving through the fabric of space itself. The Space Snake, as Musgrave would later dub it in a 1995 interview, presented an enigmatic spectacle that defied the conventional laws of physics. It appeared as a luminescent, undulating entity, its form seemingly fluid and ethereal, yet hauntingly tangible against the cosmic backdrop. Whilst following the spacecraft, the snake-like figure danced and coiled in a mesmerizing display that invoked a sense of both awe and unease among the crew. As the Space Snake writhed and contorted through the void, its enigmatic presence left an indelible mark on the STS-80 mission, a marvel that would continue to baffle astronomers for years to come. In the years following the mission, the Space Snake has remained a captivating mystery, an enigma that defies easy explanation. Some theories suggest that the spectral serpent might be an artifact of camera equipment, a play of light and shadow that conspired to create an optical illusion. Others, however, entertain the tantalizing possibility that Musgrave and his crew bore witness to an entirely new form of celestial life, a creature that exists beyond the realms of terrestrial comprehension. As someone with a deep fear of snakes, I'm really hoping they don't find their way onto Earth, because the only thing worse than a snake is a space snake.